What's your next one?
The next bill behind tab 7 is a bill that was pulled out of the Senator Bennett's K-12 Budget Subcommittee. It's a bill relating to the exceptional needs tax credit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, as Grant just mentioned, we actually pulled this bill out because of timing constraints. We couldn't get the committee together and wanted to make sure we got it on the agenda today because it's pretty important to the exceptional needs community. This is a change to our existing tax credit law. Remember, in the past, we passed an exceptional needs tax credit for people that contribute to exceptional SC, capped out at $12 million a year for the state. And there were some problems with the initial program. We moved it to Department of Revenue to clean up some of those things. But as a result of one, in my opinion, moving it to the Department of Revenue that really isn't an agency to really market and administer a tax scholarship plan, as well as some changes to federal tax laws, we've run into some problems. The program was very successful for a number of years in really basically almost meeting the $12 million mark. Over the last couple of years, it has not. What this bill does is makes a couple of changes to the existing law. One, it removes DOR from that process, replaces it all back on exceptional SC. Exceptional SC is run by a board, a 5-member board, 2 by Ways and Means, 2 appointed by Senate Finance Chair, and 1 by the governor. Those folks are doing an exceptional job running exceptional SC. So it takes DOR out of that mix. I think DOR is fine with that change. It raises the administrative allowance. Currently, there's a 2% amount of the money that's able to be retained by exceptional SC in order to run the program. It increases that from 2% to 5%. In reality, they just don't have enough money to effectively run the program, market the program, and have somebody full-time that is doing that work. It allows for a carry forward, does not increase the $12 million cap, but does allow for a carry forward for exceptional SC, so that if they get somebody that wants to make some large contributions and they can't fill it, they can still use it in future years to grant scholarships. It increases the donor allowance from 60% of their tax liability to 75%. Remember, it's still capped at $12 million, so there's no fiscal impact to that. Again, just making it a little bit more attractive from a marketing standpoint. And then the other piece that really was the piece that I was concerned about and got some information on earlier is it modifies the testing accountability. In the past, what was done was we made the policy decision that we would have exceptional SC test these kids and report that testing information to us so that we can measure the success of the organization. The problem is that flies in the face of federal law. So it got to the point where they were gathering the data, they were getting the data in, but they couldn't share that with anybody because it identified student level performance as opposed to cohort level. So we're basically allowing them to go back to the previous way that they monitored that testing, which was successful, they think was successful, and provided the information and will allow us to get some data. I think in conversations with staff, I think the testing results are pretty good if we could share them. We just can't share them. So things are going well. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but would move for a favorable report if there are none.
And I've got a question or two. The maximum is 12 million.
Yes, sir, and that does not change.
And going from 60% to 75%.
60% to 75%.
Is that on a first come, first served basis?
That's on a first come, first served basis, yes, sir. And if we look at the numbers, Mr. Chairman, as an example, back in 2017, 2018, they served over 2,300 students, and they used up $11 million of the credits were generated, and they used 10 million, almost 11 million to give to in scholarships. Compare that to last year, 1,365 students, only $5 million in tax credits were applied for, of which they paid out the majority of those as well.
Any feel for why the number of tax credits went down?
I think a couple of reasons. One, they aren't able to market the program because they don't have the funds to market the program. And then some federal tax laws didn't make it as attractive as it was previously.
I think one of the things too is a lot of states that have programs like this have these scholarship granting organizations, these private entities that kind of go out there and they beat the bushes and they meet with the corporations, and there's a financial incentive because they're allowed to retain 5% or whatever the percentage is. So there's an economic incentive component to it. I guess the question would be, does that incentive component translate over here to giving them those marketing dollars? And I think in any event, I just make that observation.
I think that's the question, and that's the point, and that's one of the permissions that we're giving in this bill, should we pass it out, is increasing that that from a 2% to a 5% measure, so that they can get out and market the program.
Is it 5%? I
So,
thought you said 3%.
How come you minutes and cetera? So, going from 2 to 5, does that reduce the amount of money available to special needs?
It will, because I mean we've got a $12 million cap. Right. The argument is we're getting nowhere towards close to the $12 million cap. So we're not even pulling it in. I think we need more in order to pull more in.
But what if we get to the 12 million?
I think that's a conversation that we should have in the future. If we get that back up and they're able to recruit those types of contributions, then I think that's a fair conversation to have.
I wonder if we ought to look at amending this, Senator, to where if we reach the 12 million, it automatically goes back to the 2%.
Senator, I'm more than happy to open it up. We didn't have any conversation as you know.
What do you think about that, though?
I'm probably one that leans more towards, let's put the 5% in, and let's let them get to work. And if we've got to change it in the future, I would probably be more inclined, if we hit the 12 million, to come back and argue for, let's increase it to 20 million at that point, than keeping it at 12 and reducing the amount. But I'm open to anything that I think that we can advance the ball and improve the program.
Senator Bannon, you had something.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. See if the subcommittee chair would
Sure.
answer a few questions. First of all, this is not expanding the program, correct?
No.
We're fixing things within the program, and so if someone had some concerns, this is doing nothing to expand. Is that correct?
That's correct.
We're seeing a decline.
Well, it is looking to expand the program by taking full advantage of the program we
Correct,
have.
and I didn't
Yes.
mean that. I'm
Yeah.
saying is that we're not.
We're not expanding from 12 million to 50 million, no.
Thank you. We've seen the money raised decline. Why would we, in other functions, if we were seeing money decline, why would we want to allow them to keep more for administration? I think you're getting maybe to some marketing as an answer, but traditionally we don't reward an entity that is having trouble doing what they've asked them to do by allowing them to almost, I guess, more than double the amount of money that we keep. Is it as simple as just marketing?
I think it's a combination of marketing, and you didn't have an agency in charge of it that was built for that at DOR. I mean, you just didn't.
So you had something.
Early on when we were doing good, because they were collecting money at good at first, were they doing a better job marketing then? What did they offer an explanation of why they were collecting good money and then it went downhill?
Well, I think Prior to that, the tax laws were a little more advantageous, and I think they were doing more marketing. There was more outreach to those folks.
And last question is, it appears as if there is a little bit less either accountability or monitoring by state agencies on them. Should we have less accountability when we're giving them more freedom, if I'm asking that? And I follow your argument, and I plan on supporting this, but I guess my question is they've been having trouble, and we're going to give them more, they're going to get to more than double the amount of money they get to keep, and they'll no longer have DOR over them. It appears that there's less accountability watching them. You've said that we should have faith in the members that are on their board, and I do. But do you see the conflict of that? Do you think it's worth the risk, I guess is the way of framing it as a question?
If you believe that there is risk, then I would say, yes, I believe that it's worth the risk.
Thank you.
I think the organization has clearly shown a turnaround from the times where there were problems. Yeah.
I assume we will follow up maybe next
Absolutely.
year and
Sure.
share.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's a,
Well, I want to follow up. I think the last question, particularly Senator Fairfield asked, is a great question, Senator from Dorchester. In this era of shining light and having full disclosure, wouldn't it be better to have them at least report annually to the two finance committees of the House and Senate? Or somebody, so that somebody looks at it annually? That's really not the issue I wanted to ask you that, but I just throw that out as a thought. How much can one individual claim in the tax credits?
Up to 75% of their tax liability.
So one person could take the whole 12 million if they made enough money.
I guess technically they could if they wanted to donate $12 million, and that was,
Is there any thought to doing what we did with the research authority this last time through in order to let more people take advantage of it, to say each individual can only get X number of dollars the first round, and after 30 days, if it's not used up, then come back and take a second bite at the apple too? And frankly, that may help them with their marketing.
yeah.
You get more of not just what I call the big boys.
Yeah, Senator, I would probably, and I don't have a breakdown of the big boys, but I would tell you just by the numbers, if there's a big boy, there's one, and nobody else is claiming it, because we're not coming anywhere close to the $12 million. I mean, we're under 50% of what is being utilized. So I don't think anybody right now is being locked out of the process. If there were that, I think I would be concerned about that.
I do like the idea of reporting at least annually.
I'm not opposed to that, Senator.
so you want to propose an amendment?
Well, I can, Mr. Chairman, just that they annually report to the Senate Finance Committee and the House Ways and Means what they did the previous year as to who the recipients were, how much, et cetera, how much they raised, how much they spent, so that we are aware of that.
I think Grant might have some insight on that.
Yes, sir. In the not in the bill you had before, but in the root legislation of this, and this is one of the things Senator Bennett and I talked about. So there's maybe one technical amendment to put in here, but the current law says by January 15th of each year, the department reports to the Senate Finance, Ways and Means, and the governor the number and total amount of grants issued to eligible schools, the identity of the school and the amount of the grant, an itemized and detailed explanation of fees and other revenues obtained from on behalf of the schools, a copy of a compilation review or audit of the fund's financial statements conducted by a CPA, and the criteria and eligibility requirements for scholarship awards. So that's currently in the law.
Chairman, I withdraw my motion. I'm fine.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could, in today's wonderful world of technology, I can also tell you that the average donation is $15,000.
So you're reaching the little guy.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion?
Move for adoption.
Do you want to do that technical amendment to take the department out? Like let the
Yes.
public-
Yes, please.
You got something else you want to
You,
propose?
you want to put that forward, Grant?
As part of it, as Senator Bennett explained, there's right below there's that requirement that the department reports these things. If the department takes out of this, it seemed appropriate that the public charity would be the one that reports that. So the the further amendment to clarify that would be to take the department out in item 5 and say the public charity reports these things.
Any discussion on this last proposed amendment? Hearing none, any objection? Hearing none, it's adopted. So Cindy, you now move to report out favorable as amended. Motion second, any further discussion on that? Hearing none, any objection, reporting out favorable? Hearing none, it's reported out. Is that Dave Grant?
Yes, sir. That concludes your agenda.
Thank y'all for coming.